Hello, everybody, and welcome to a 2026 off-season preview edition of the Patriots Roundtable Podcast. Alongside Tyler Geis, I am Eddie Murata, and we are excited to now turn the page from a Super Bowl loss toward an off-season full of optimism for the New England Patriots as they now turn the page to the 2026 offseason. They're set with roughly $42 million in cap space, 11 draft picks, and all the opportunity in the world to build on an already sound foundation to their young roster. Now, they have flexibility at this point in time, but upcoming contracts may set the board for everything that's to come for New England. We'll have to start by evaluating what they already have in-house, who they want to invest in, who they want to continue to develop, and who's worth retaining moving year two of the Mike Vrabel era. From contract extensions to in-house free agents, cap casualties, free agents, and the NFL draft, we have so much to preview coming up here in the coming weeks on the Patriots Roundtable Podcast. But first, Tyler, I got to know, how are you feeling now 1 week removed from the Super Bowl 60 loss? Are we still experiencing any lingering emotions, or are we ready to just move forward? And if so, what are you most excited for here in the coming weeks? Is it free agency, the NFL draft, trades? How are we feeling right now?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room. I don't have a beard anymore. As for anybody who's been watching you and me banter and chat and break down stuff for the last, I don't know, like month and a half now, or maybe even a little longer, I've had a beard. And the reason is because once we got in the playoffs, I get superstitious and I didn't want to shave it. But obviously that kind of backfired a little bit. I mean, I was going to shave it after the Super Bowl anyway. So yeah, this is me with a clean shaved face. I don't mean to promote that. What the heck? I just thought I'd address the elephant in the room. But
yeah, I should have led you off as the clean shaven Tyler Geis. I mean, come on, it looks great.
No, that's everybody. Everybody's asked me all week. Everybody who's seen me in public. I mean, I haven't seen any fans of the show in public, I don't think, or maybe I have, but yeah, they're like, why'd you shave it? I was just like, the Patriots lost. I mean, I was going to shave it anyway after the Super Bowl, but it's been to answer your question. It started off a little, it's a bummer. They lost the Super Bowl. It's I've now lived through, I think, 5 of their 6 Super Bowl losses. I think I'm doing that math right, since I was a little kid. So it's I've been there. I've seen Tom Brady lose Super Bowls. I've seen Drew Bledsoe lose Super Bowls, and I've seen Drake Maye lose a Super Bowl. All the news coming out, you got to decipher through all the, internet BS that's out there with memes of just hating on the losing team and whatnot. But there's also been some really positive stuff. I mean, NFL Films releasing a ton of content with, Christian Barmore and Milton Williams having a moment on the sidelines after they kind of losing the Super Bowl set in. That was a cool thing to watch. Really showed you the camaraderie that this team has. Ramondre Stevenson on the sidelines as well. Once all that said, and the interactions between Drake Maye and Mike Vrabel was a great sight to see. And then that clip, which I wrote a story about, I think I put it on our posts too as well. That I think went viral. A lot of people saw it, of Vrabel doing what he did after every game this season, waiting outside the locker room to shake everybody's hand, and to see the fact that he, even in the biggest loss of the season, still went and did that. And I think, just to kind of harp on that clip for a second, one of the greatest things I saw in that clip is you can see Will Campbell approaching him, like in a shot in that. And, all the news we've had about Will Campbell, he didn't have a great game. He knows he didn't have a great game. He had an MCL tear this season, and, people have critiqued him, poked fun at him. You and I aren't here to do stuff like that. I mean, we have our notes on whoever here and there, but there were some digs at Campbell all week long, and just to kind of see how Vrabel went up to his rookie and just really embraced him still, knowing that it was a tough night. That was just a cool clip to see, I think, for Patriots fans. And I think a lot of people took notice of just okay, there really is a culture in that organization that Vrabel set out to do. And he seemed to have succeeded at it, even though they didn't get the job done in the Super Bowl. So just seeing stuff like that kind of eases the pain, I guess. And, this is still a great football team. I know there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered in, a month's time. We're less than a month out of free agency starting, which you and I are going to harp on tonight with our predictions. But I still think a great team is going to be taking shape into next season. And I would say my focus has been very optimistic in the last few days, especially leading up to getting to do this show this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that for the Patriots here, it certainly stings to have a Super Bowl loss in the books now, but none of us expected them to be as far as they were in year one of the Vrabel regime. And now seeing the foundation of talent that they already have on the team, that wasn't something that we were able to talk about in off seasons past here. So now moving ahead into 2026, I think where we have to start is what the Patriots already have in-house and how they can mold and develop the talent that they've already got on the team here. So before we move forward to all of the potential additions through free agency, through the draft, through trades that could potentially happen in the coming weeks and months here, I think it's important to kind of take a step back and look at what the Patriots currently have on the roster and the flexibility that they have with the assets, the load of assets that they have to continue to build upon that solid foundation that they set in year one of Mike Vrabel. So now entering the 2026 offseason, the NFL salary cap is projected to continue to balloon as it seems to do now on an annual basis. We are projected at $303.5 million for the 2026 salary cap, and that puts the Patriots with top 12 salary cap space entering the offseason, sitting at roughly $41.82 million. So it sounds like they have a lot of money to go out there and spend. That's before any cap casualties, which we'll be touching on here in a little bit. That's before any restructuring of current deals that are on the team right now. But what that doesn't take into consideration, Tyler, is a potential extension for some of these young players that the Patriots now have that are going to be due for new contracts here soon. That starts this offseason with Christian Gonzalez. And I want to open the floor up to you here first. I know that you wrote a piece on this earlier in the week talking about the potential of Christian Gonzalez's contract extension and what that might mean for the Patriots moving forward here. That should be projected right around $30 million. If you're looking back at some of the previous corner deals, Sauce Gardner. So we're looking at just about $30.5 million now with that extended cap. It could be even higher than that. Gonzalez has faced some criticism in terms of his fit in Mike Vrabel's system and how necessary lockdown man-to-man corner might be in a more zone-heavy scheme. Tyler, do you feel like Christian Gonzalez is worth the bag of cash that he's about to have coming his way? Or do you think the Patriots may have some second thoughts about handing out a contract that large to a player like him at this point in his career?
Well, I mean, to just go back into the annals of time of Super Bowl winning Patriots teams, there always was, I don't want to use the term lockdown corner. Well, I guess in some aspect they really were. If I really think of one of the names specifically, but you look at Ty Law in those early days of the Brady Belichick era. Ty Law was just one of the greatest cornerbacks to watch. I mean, you kind of, as a fan, I kind of like grew up with him as just kind of like the peak defensive back on the Patriots in that era of late 90s, early 2000s. And then you trickle into like the back half of those Super Bowl victories. I know he was only on the team for 1 year, but we forget the Patriots had Darrelle Revis in 2014. And it's almost kind of like Revis was this, you didn't even hear about him that much this year because he is the epitome of the lockdown corner of that era. And they never had to say his name because he always had the star wide receiver on the opposing team, as they call him, Revis Island. They had him on an island with him. Didn't have to worry about him. It wasn't a problem. Just made that not a factor. A few years later, Stephon Gilmore coming in there and just making a huge impact on the team. That iconic shot of in the AFC Championship against the Jaguars when you thought Blake Bortles and the Jaguars were going to rally there, and that hand up to just kind of block that pass was such a cool sight to see. Such a game-saving player. And now you have Christian Gonzalez here, who I think it's just funny to me how the Patriots defense always kind of has these just like key players that show up every 5-6 years. You see it a lot in the linebacking core, which I think you're kind of starting to see now. You've just seen it over time, nonstop. And here's kind of another example of those past names we're seeing. So to answer your question, I think he's worth market value. I think he deserves every penny that they're going to give him that extension. And I think they have to give him that extension. And to echo a little bit about what I wrote in that piece, which is pretty much also pulling from a past Patriots defensive back, Rodney Harrison, who was just saying, like, you need to pay, they're going to pay this man. They have to pay this man. Well, they got to give him this extension now, because next year or the year after, or I forget the kind of the logistics of that past this season, it's going to get more complicated. Drake Maye is still in his rookie contract. Let's say, just for the sake of talking about this, Drake Maye leads the Patriots to the Super Bowl again and they win it next year. Or even if they go and lose, or if they get to the AFC Championship and lose, it's still going to just add more and more value to Drake Maye, and he's going to get a big payday in a couple years, I feel. So I think you need to pay Christian Gonzalez right now, and you need to lock him in and don't make it very, very hard for this guy to go anywhere else. Gonzalez has openly expressed, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, he loves the fact that he was drafted here. He loves playing. So this is something that's got to be done this offseason. I really think it's priority. This is top one, maybe even the top on the list for what the Patriots need to do in terms of this phase of framing next season. And you also got to look at his performance in the Super Bowl. I mean, what is the one positive thing that people who follow the game and beat reporters and everybody have said? The one positive thing about the Patriots in that game was Christian Gonzalez. He played lights out football. He played against the offensive player of the year, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and kind of made him a non-factor in that game. And yes, the Seahawks were able to pivot. They went to the run game. Cooper Kupp got involved late a little bit. But, and yes, JSN did have to leave going to concussion protocol. He came back into the game. But all in all, Gonzo kind of balled out that night. And yes, they lost, but he's been the one positive takeaway from Super Bowl 60.
Yeah, absolutely. I second everything that you said. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. And I think that it's of the utmost importance for this team that you don't allow a homegrown talent like Gonzalez, who is still only 24 years old at this point. He was another one of these players that the Patriots drafted extremely young. And maybe perhaps Bill Belichick's final parting shot for the Patriots defense on his way out the door to be able to find him at 17th overall looks like an absolute steal as more and more time goes on here. But you don't let a player like this walk out the door. And look, if he doesn't fit your scheme, he can fit your scheme because he is good enough to run anything you ask him to run. He's not always asked to shadow the number one receiver, but I think, as you touched on, the Super Bowl was a moment where he was asked to do so, and he absolutely overperformed in that moment. Probably the brightest spot on the field for the Patriots in an otherwise extremely dull overall performance for them in Super Bowl 60. He showed you in that game that he is worth every single penny, and it behooves the Patriots to get this done much earlier rather than later. Maye is also due for a contract extension. The earliest point they could do that is after this upcoming season. So going into the 2027 offseason there. And the going rate for quarterbacks right now is already over $60 million a year annually. So I think if you're New England, you have to look at this from a lens that Gonzalez is going to be on the books for over $30 million. Maye is going to be on the books for over $60 million. And then you fill in the cracks around them because those are two of, if we go like top 5 premier positions in the league right now, cornerback's definitely up there. Quarterback, of course, is the number 1 there. I think the Patriots do have their answer at left tackle with Will Campbell, although that one, at least if you listen to the social media critics, may be a little bit more questionable. I think that leaves edge rusher for them. And perhaps if you want to go with a perimeter, like an X wide receiver, that could be your 5th premier position. So those may still be question marks for the Patriots. We'll certainly touch on that as the offseason goes along. But when you have 3 of those with big check marks on them at left tackle, at quarterback, and at corner, you don't allow those guys to leave the building. You nurture them. Campbell's only 22, Maye's only 24, Gonzalez is only 24. These guys are extremely young, and they could be foundational pieces of this roster for 10 to 15 years to come as Mike Vrabel continues to solidify what he wants the identity of his team to look like moving into year 2 and beyond. But that also begins now to have us start to fill in the cracks around these guys. And the Patriots enter the 2026 offseason with just 14 in-house free agents. Only 6 of those free agents are unrestricted free agents, with another 8 being restricted or exclusive rights free agents. So a little bit easier to get deals done with those guys. We'll touch on them in a second, but those 6 unrestricted free agents, I think, are headlined here by Chaisson on the edge and Jalen Hawkins at safety, both of whom came to the Patriots after kind of journeyman careers to begin their NFL career, now considered veteran players. Chaisson is 26, going to be 27. Hawkins is 28 now at this point in his career, and both really had breakout seasons for the Patriots in 2025 with pivotal roles on that defense that ended up just dominating for the vast majority of their deep postseason run. They were integral pieces of the success that defense had, especially in the postseason. Chaisson finished the year, including the playoffs, with 12 sacks, and Hawkins tied for the team lead with 4 interceptions on the year. Tyler, let's start just with these 2 guys. Out of these 2, who would you make it a priority to re-sign, and who are we going to see walking out the door if either of them? Do you want to bring both of them back, or is one or the other going to end up finding their way out of Foxborough because the price tag just starts to get a little bit too high as they're filling in the cracks on this roster?
I was dreading this question. I wish you didn't ask me because I actually wanted to keep both, but I feel like it's going to be one or the other. And part of me feels like Hawkins might be out the door with the I keep calling him Gonzo, but I know that's his nickname, but Gonzalez extension looming. But I feel like he's been a great complement to that secondary. 4 interceptions, I believe, at 91.3% in snaps. I mean, the guy was on the field basically all season long. So I think he's just a great kind of gap filler on that field for that secondary. I don't know. I just kind of feel like he's going to be the one that gets the boot, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to be aggressive with those words. Sorry. But I feel like the Patriots could move off of him, and maybe that's something that they pick up in the draft. Chaisson to me was just super impressive all season long. He felt like an old school Patriot to me. In the sense, because some guys are like you said, are journeymen, and then they come into the system. An example coming to my head right now, and I know he's kind of come and gone. He's still in the league in Baltimore, I believe, but Kyle Van Noy, an outsider who came in for 4 or 5 years under the Belichick regime, and just he felt like a New England Patriot, and that's what I'm kind of seeing of him. And I feel like that would gravitate towards Mike Vrabel. So I don't know, but I feel like it feel like in a scenario of it being one stays, one goes. That's my take on it. But like I said, I dreaded this question. I want them both to stay, and I hope they can. I hope something's worked out. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's entirely out of the realm of possibility. I actually love this, though, because I'm going to go the other direction on this one. I think Hawkins is the guy that ends up finding his way back to New England. I think the market for him is probably going to be a little bit cheaper for the Patriots to be able to retain him, with him being a safety. I loved his pairing with former Cal Golden Bears teammate Craig Woodson this past season. Both of them were on the field for over 90% of the overall defensive snaps, and they were able to rotate down and around the field, play all over the place, play off of each other extremely well. I think for the market for edge rushers, now that you have a guy like Chaisson that puts up, including the postseason, a 10 plus or 12 plus sack season, there are going to be more suitors for a guy like him. Both of these guys, though, did come in on extremely cost efficient deals for the New England Patriots, with Chaisson being on just a 1 year, $3 million deal. Hawkins was picked up in 2024, but then signed on for 2025 at just over $2 million deal. So extremely cheap for both of these guys, especially being veteran players. I think at the edge rusher position, that's where you could start to see a guy like Chaisson's cap number balloon. I think the interesting thing to monitor here with both of these players, though, is regardless of whether or not they're retained, I think the Patriots still look to make additions, and perhaps more splash additions in both of those rooms as the offseason moves along. You mentioned the draft with another safety. I love that as a potential avenue to pick up a third guy behind Hawkins and behind Woodson. There was a lot of turnover in that room last year as Vrabel moved on from guys like Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers that retained those positions for a long time in New England. So there's certainly some depth concern behind those two that needs to be addressed by New England in some way, shape, or form this offseason. But I think as you look at that Patriots defensive line and their inability to generate pressure with the front four, that carried over into the postseason. And although the sack numbers look good for Chaisson, and there's certainly career best marks for him, the Patriots generated pressure at just the 24th highest rate in the NFL this season and only accrued 35 total sacks in the regular season. In the playoffs, those pressure and blitz statistics really started to go up. But for me, I look at that and say, okay, you're sending additional rushers at such a high clip because you don't have confidence, like some of these other teams that the Patriots were playing, that you are going to be able to generate pressure with just your front four. They have a great interior defensive lineman with high-paid players like Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. But I think for the Patriots, where you could see them start to look to make more of those splash moves would be with an edge rusher. And I think that's what ultimately hurts Chaisson's probability of being back with the Patriots next season, unless it's a really team-friendly deal and they get that done early before he starts to set some sort of market for himself in free agency. I think it's difficult to retain him and add some sort of premier talent unless you're going with like the 31st overall pick in the draft and picking an edge rusher there. Still at that point in the draft, it's not like picking at number 4 overall where the Patriots were last year. It's a little bit more of a dart throw to see, if this guy sticks around. The Patriots, and certainly for fans here, you've seen plenty of these picks at the bottom of the first round where they don't necessarily always work out. They're not as sure of a thing as you might see with the top 5 draft picks. So I would rather see them go out, and if they're going to get a sure thing at a certain position this offseason, I would like to see that be edge rusher. We're going to hold off on talking about all the possible names because there are going to be plenty that the Patriots could target this offseason. But I think for me, it has to be Hawkins being retained at a more reasonable cap number, and then perhaps Chaisson performing so well this season for the Patriots that he may have just priced himself out of some sort of reunion. Now, the Patriots do have 4 other unrestricted free agents here to take a look at this offseason. Those names are tight end Austin Hooper, 2 offensive tackles in Vidarian Lowe and Thayer Munford Jr., and defensive tackle Kyrus Tonga. Tyler, out of that group of names, who would you like to see the Patriots bring back, and who could we potentially see walking here in the offseason?
Forgive me, did you say Austin Hooper? You froze
Austin
up.
Hooper.
Okay, I got you. I would honestly say, because that's who I want to start with. I could see the page. I was excited when we signed Austin Hooper. I thought it was a great compliment to Hunter Henry in that sense. But I just didn't see a lot of production out of him really that I probably wanted to, and I don't really. Maybe you know more than I do, just maybe kind of why that is. But Hunter Henry really kind of is tight end number one. Always has been. Happy he's stuck around really these last few years, even through the dark days of the last 3 or 4 years. Bringing in Austin Hooper was an interesting move because Patriots fans are used to seeing like 2 tight ends out there. We've seen it multiple times. Over the last 15 years, and New England's been successful at it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots move off Hooper. Maybe it just wasn't really a good fit or something like that. And I could see New England maybe drafting low on a tight end, so maybe second or third round in there for that sense, because, I think it would be a good time to maybe develop a young guy in that position. So, I'll harp more about that when we get around to the draft, but, see who's out there. But I think Hooper's, respectfully, I don't think he's going to be a Patriot next year. I was excited when they signed him. Tonga, I think he strikes me as a Vrabel guy in the sense of just how versatile he is. I think Vrabel likes guys like that because he was versatile as a player. Going out there and playing tight end at the goal line and catching touchdown passes from Tom Brady. We see Tonga thrown in there to be a blocker at the goal line too in the backfield. It's just, and then, he goes out there and plays defense. 17 pressures, 13 hits. He played 18 offensive snaps this year. So he is, I don't know if maybe he goes with a team-friendly deal because he seems like he was having fun out there in that sense. But I'd love to see him back in a Patriots uniform next year personally.
Yeah, I totally agree on the Tonga point. I want to see this guy back so bad. He brings versatility on both the defensive side and the offensive side of the football, and he became an extremely effective early down run stuffing defensive tackle on the interior of that Patriots defensive line. Fantastic in a rotation with guys like Williams and Barmore when they need to come off and get a breather. You don't feel like there was that much of a drop off in the level of play along the defensive interior, especially later in the season when Tonga got healthy again and made that postseason run himself. He was fantastic in the playoffs, recorded his first career sack in the AFC Championship game. So a fantastic moment for him there in a big spot for the Patriots. Would absolutely love to see him be brought back. And I think the same could be said for a lot of these guys on the unrestricted free agent end. They should be somewhat affordable for the Patriots to bring back. I would love to see there be a way for Hooper to come back to the Patriots. He played over 46% of the snaps on offense for the Patriots, as McDaniels loved to specialize in that 12 and 22 personnel sets that featured 2 tight ends on the field a lot. Of course, Hunter Henry was the clear-cut number 1 option in that room, but Hooper provided some value for you as a number 2 tight end over the last couple of years. And I don't think at this point in his career is going to be commanding such a huge market that he prices himself out of coming back to New England like a guy like Chaisson Maye that we talked about earlier. The one guy on this list that I feel like may be a redundancy for the Patriots at this point would be Vidarian Lowe, especially after the addition of Thayer Munford this offseason. And if I had to pick between the two of those guys, I think that Munford ends up coming back. And again, another one of these rooms where the Patriots could continue to look to add bodies, specifically along the offensive line at tackle. We talked about potentially halfway through the season here, them going out and getting another swing tackle. That's really what Munford ended up becoming in the latter stages of the season, as the Patriots used him on offense as a kind of eligible tight end in those jumbo set packages with 6 offensive linemen on the field. He just ended up finding himself on the field more than Vidarian Lowe did, who strictly plays at left tackle. Munford can move between left and right tackle. And then again, as that additional eligible offensive lineman on the field, and probably a pretty cheap player to bring back as you continue to look to add talent elsewhere to that room. So I don't blame you for saying Hooper may be out the door here. There might be a team that wants to bring him in because of his contributions with the Patriots and more of a secondary role here. I would love to see, just fit and culture-wise, him be back in the room with Henry. I thought he was a great fit there and certainly made his way onto the field a lot. But I love that point there by you. In the draft, there are actually 27 tight ends that were invited to the NFL scouting combine this offseason. That's a 5-year high. So there should be an opportunity for the Patriots as we get closer and closer to draft talk to add to that room with some draft capital later on in the draft. Now, we're going to talk about cap casualties. We're going to talk about the draft in upcoming episodes. I do want to touch on some of these restricted free agent and exclusive rights free agent options that the Patriots have currently in-house, though. Now, these RFA tenders for restricted free agents starting to balloon a little bit, Tyler. The baseline for their contracts is sitting now currently at $3.5 million heading into 2026. So that makes it a little bit more pricey to try and match contracts even at the bottom level for some of these guys. And on that list, we currently have Alex Austin, Tommy DeVito, offensive tackle Yasir Durant, who missed most of the season after being placed on injured reserve in August. Jack Gibbons at linebacker is another one of those players, and defensive tackle Jaquelin Roy is on that list as well in terms of restricted free agents. I think for me, I can kick things off here with restricted free agents. I could pretty much see most of these guys walking out the door. DeVito might be a little bit expensive for an emergency third quarterback at $3.5 million, for example. But the one guy that I would love to see them bring back and maybe use that $3.5 million as a baseline for a longer term extension would be Jack Gibbons. I thought he provided great value to that linebacker room as a kind of super sub behind Robert Spillane, who we saw go out with injuries at a couple of different points during the 2025 season, behind a guy like Christian Ellis. Who knows what Jelani Tavai's future looks like with this team. I think Gibbons, he came into the NFL. He was an undrafted free agent pickup by Vrabel in 2022 when he was with Tennessee and ended up moving over with Vrabel now that he got the job in New England. Had a great 2025 season. Seems like a player that, again, just culture fit wise is a no-brainer to bring back into this system. Anybody else off of that list you're looking at? How are we feeling about Jack Gibbons as far as the restricted free agents go here for the Patriots?
I want him to come back basically just kind of off of something I harped on earlier. Like the linebacker position in New England has always just felt like this brotherhood of this family of sorts. And, he kind of gives it a lot of depth, and he's a Vrabel guy. He's been around, Vrabel obviously loves him. And I think there's some sort of sway there for him as well. I'd love to see him back in that linebacker, even if he's not the prominent guy. Like you said, he kind of gives a good support system coming into games when things need to be switched up a lot. You mentioned Tommy DeVito. I kind of probably see him getting, ousted. I mean, he can, I kind of always saw him, sorry, I'm getting my words tangled up here. But, the fact that he was drafted by New York and just his persona and everything and all those internet memes and his agent and whatnot and Tommy Cutlets and all that stuff, I think that was just kind of like this amazing gift to have him start his career in New York. But he does kind of strike me as a bit of an NFL journeyman. I kind of knew it was a one and done kind of deal with him being in that QB room. So I can kind of see the Patriots moving off of him to free up some space and whatnot. I don't know who they'd bring in as a QB3 or maybe even up into a QB2. I don't know who's on the market right now or going into March. I probably do a little bit, but DeVito to me felt just kind of like a passing ship through Foxborough, even though it was kind of cool to have him on the roster. But yeah, linebacking brotherhood in New England to me has always been a strong thing. It's always been a next man up mentality, I feel, in that position. And that is one of the reasons why I see them re-signing him. Gibbons, excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm right there with you again. I love the North End Tommy references. He was up there in the North End for all of the Italian festivals and everything. It was just great for all the memes and what it meant for Boston for a little bit. It was a fun storyline early on in the season. But for an emergency third quarterback that I don't think that anybody would feel all that comfortable with taking over for Drake Maye in the actual case of emergency, I think he's going to be a little bit too rich for what that contract may demand as a third quarterback there. One other that I do want to touch on here would be Alex Austin, a guy that did find his way onto the field, especially in years past for the Patriots, but battled through some injuries in 2025. And then the Patriots ended up picking up Charles Woods at a certain point in the year. And even when Austin was back around, he was kind of battling for that fourth or fifth corner spot on the roster with Woods, who ended up playing a lot more than he did even through the postseason run. So Austin, a young player, he's only 24 years old, but again, that cap number there at $3.5 million, I think is going to be the hurdle in terms of bringing him back. Just 3 exclusive rights free agents, and this is where things get a little bit more affordable for the Patriots, guys that I think that they're probably each going to bring back just as camp bodies at very least. They have an edge player, Isaiah Eiton, who spent most of the season on injured reserve. Same with running back Deneric Prince. And then one key name here would be fullback Jack Westover, who of course was the Patriots' primary fullback this season, was a converted tight end for the Patriots after Brock Lampy went out, an undrafted rookie free agent that they brought in, ended up landing on injured reserve. And Westover played a bunch for the Patriots this year. He logged over 21.7% of all offensive snaps as the team's designated fullback, but he was also PFF's lowest rated starting fullback for whatever that's worth. There were only 10 of them in the NFL last year, but I think we saw some of those deficiencies in the run blocking game actually get masked by the Patriots putting Khyiris Tonga on the field so much on offense in the latter stages of the season. And I think that the fact that the Pats felt the need to put Tonga out there is more an indictment on Westover's level of play. So I don't think that he's necessarily a guy that they get rid of. They can bring him back for around $800,000 or $900,000 this year. So certainly cheap, but definitely a position that I can see them with one of those 8 day 3 picks that they have in the draft, potentially addressing the fullback position a little bit more heavily this offseason. Again, you have a guy like Brock Lampy coming back. That was kind of the idea when they picked him up last year. Westover certainly going to be back around by all indications next year, but not necessarily somebody that I, write with Sharpie marker in on the final 53-man roster going into 2026. Tyler, any comments there on Jack Westover?
I mean, you kind of hit the nail in the coffin with me. I mean, I don't even really know a lot about them, to be honest. Guys who are on IR all week, but I think are on all season. But I think having to utilize Tonga on the offense this season kind of proves how much they probably need. It's Westover, right? Who they had at fullback. Forgive me. I think that does. I think that just shows. I think he's of a perfect price. You said under $1 million, and I think that's going to help the Patriots kind of long term down. That's a big money saving tactic for me. Like anytime you can recoup guys like that for under $1 million that bring a lot of value on the field, it's worth it. Even if they're not superstar names, I think it's a worth it shot to kind of go forward in that direction with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned on the 2 previous guys, maybe just camp bodies, but you got to fill out a 90-man roster. They're extremely cheap to bring back around. I think a lot of times there is some sort of game that these NFL teams play with that as they're moving pieces around during training camp. You stash a guy on IR, you get to bring him back for cheap the next year.
Yeah.
I think of even guys like we mentioned, Brock Lampy, Lam Larison was an undrafted rookie that a lot of guys were excited about coming into last season at running back. So he could be coming back. That could complicate things in that running back room a little bit. We're going to touch on that next week as we start to get closer and closer toward the free agency frenzy, towards the NFL draft. There's certainly a lot more for us to cover, but Westover, a cheap option that provided you a lot of value on the field this season, and certainly somebody that you're going to start off at least 2026 with on the 90-man roster. All right, guys, so that's going to just about do it for us here today. Next week, we're going to be taking a closer look at some potential cap casualties for the Patriots as they look to build off of the foundation that they have through the 2025 season. They have contract extensions coming up. We mentioned Gonzalez. We mentioned Maye. How might that affect some of the other players that are already making big money on the Patriots roster? We'll dive deeper into the NFL draft, along with some more positions of need and how the Patriots may look to fill those in free agency and in the draft. Guys, if this is your first contact point with us, we'd like to thank you for sticking around all the way to the end and welcome you to the Patriots Roundtable community. For more on the Patriots from us, remember to head over to the Patriots Roundtable website at roundtable.io. We look forward to seeing you there. Guys, for Tyler Geis, I'm Eddie Murata. Thank you once again for listening to the Patriots Roundtable podcast. We are signing off until next time.